Hi team, welcome to the 2.3 gas exchange series. This video series is all about the 3 credit internal on gas exchange. This is video 1. So in this video you're going to be learning about why gas exchange is so important and how diffusion is key to gas exchange. By the end of this lesson you should be able to distinguish between cell respiration, gas exchange and ventilation, and describe the role of diffusion in gas exchange. So all animals need to carry out aerobic cellular respiration to create large amounts of energy in the form of ATP from this glucose molecule that comes from our food. Animals need this energy, this ATP, to be able to do the activities they need to do to survive. So a good example is how muscle cells need energy in the form of ATP to be able to contract and relax, which gives animals the ability to move to look for food or to look for a mate or to run away from predators to escape them. Without this energy, without aerobic cellular respiration, animals won't be able to survive in their niche. They can't find their food, they can't reproduce, they can't save themselves from predators. One of the molecules absolutely needed for aerobic respiration is oxygen right here. Without this oxygen, aerobic cellular respiration can't happen, and animals won't get the energy they need to survive in their niche. So where do animals get their oxygen from? The source of oxygen for aerobic cellular respiration depends on the animal's ecological niche. So remember back to this diagram I showed you guys when we did the 2.6 internal. Remember that ecological niche is the functional position an organism has in its environment, the environment being the habitat, the resources in this habitat, and also the physical conditions. In terms of this habitat and the resources in it, the resources we're talking about in this standard is oxygen. Now humans, like all mammals, and crickets, like all insects, are terrestrial animals. That means they live on land, and because they live on land, they get their oxygen from air. Now snapper, like all fish, are aquatic animals, which means they live in bodies of water. Specifically, they live in the ocean, and they get their oxygen from water. It's important to know that the oxygen they get from water isn't the oxygen molecule in water, H2O. It's not that oxygen. The oxygen they get from water is dissolved oxygen. Dissolved oxygen is oxygen that's dissolved from the atmosphere into the ocean. It's kind of like how fizzy drinks have carbon dioxide dissolved into the drink to make it fizzy. But obviously oxygen doesn't make water fizzy. It's kind of the same idea though. Now we know where oxygen for aerobic cellular respiration comes from, the next thing we need to know is how animals take this oxygen from the air or from the water. How do they absorb it? All animals need to absorb oxygen from air or water, and they need to release carbon dioxide through a process called gas exchange. Gas exchange is the process where different gases, so in this case we're talking about oxygen and carbon dioxide, where different gases are exchanged or transferred or swapped in opposite directions. Gas exchange supplies the organism with oxygen because oxygen goes from outside of the body to the inside of the body, whereas carbon dioxide is removed during gas exchange. It goes from the inside of the body to the outside of the body. So let's look at this diagram right here. The outside of the body is in purple, and the outside of the body has mostly got oxygen, whereas the inside of the body is orange, and the inside of the body has mostly got carbon dioxide. So during gas exchange, these two gases are exchanged or transferred or swapped in opposite directions, oxygen going into the body and carbon dioxide going out of the body. Gas exchange happens across a specialized respiratory surface, and it does this through the process of diffusion. Remember from a previous lesson in 2.4, diffusion is the passive net movement of molecules from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. Passive, meaning that no energy is required, it just uses the concentration gradient to move from an area of high to low concentration. And net, meaning total movement. So in total, these molecules will be moving in this direction to the right, down their concentration gradient. For oxygen and carbon dioxide molecules to be able to move across this specialized respiratory surface, this surface must be semi-permeable. We've come across this word semi-permeable before, and it means that certain molecules can go in and out of this membrane. For diffusion to happen, there must also be a concentration gradient on either side of the membrane. Like oxygen, it has to either be in high concentration on this side and low concentration on this side, or vice versa. If they're equal in concentration on either side of the membrane, then no diffusion is going to happen. Because remember, diffusion is driven by the concentration gradient. There's nothing else driving diffusion but a concentration gradient. It's good to know that oxygen is very low inside of the body, because it's being constantly used up by our cells for aerobic respiration. Whatever oxygen comes in, it's immediately being used up by our cells. So oxygen moves across the semi-permeable membrane from this area of high concentration outside of the body to this area of low concentration inside of the body. Let's look at carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is very high in concentration inside the body, because it's being constantly made by our cells as a byproduct or as a waste product of aerobic cellular respiration. So because it's in high concentration inside the body, carbon dioxide is going to move across the semi-permeable membrane in the opposite direction of oxygen to the area of low concentration outside of the body. Before gas exchange and diffusion can happen, something must happen first. Air and water first need to get to this specialized respiratory surface. Animals must first take in this water or this air. And the way animals take in this water or this air is through a process called ventilation. Ventilation is the movement or the flow of air or water in and out of a gas exchange system. So lungs or gills or the tracheal system, which you'll learn more about in the future. And the point of ventilation is to get this air or this water into the gas exchange system and directly on the respiratory surface. Ventilation is kind of like what you do when there's a bad smell in the room. When there's a bad smell in the room, you open some windows or you get a fan going to get rid of the smell, right? The open window lets new air in and allows old air to escape, and the fan circulates the air faster. So animals like humans, crickets, and snapper ventilate to increase the flow, the circulation of new air or water in, and get rid of the old air or the old water out. And the purpose of this is to increase the rate of gas exchange. So by now you should be able to distinguish between cellular respiration, gas exchange, and ventilation, and describe the role of diffusion in gas exchange. Please go to Lemonade and check for any tasks that you've got to do after watching this video. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.